Hey, welcome to the I don't know what to call this stream. It's not a stream because I'm not streaming. I only stream the games, and I will eventually be streaming stuff, um, our D&D games on Friday nights, unless that changes when I move. I don't know. So, just going to give you a quick background to my current game that I'm going to be talking about, and you might end up seeing some stream on. Um, Quick background. Started this campaign originally. This is part two. We started the original campaign like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It's somewhere on my Facebook page. I'll have to look it up. In February, I think February 13th, 2014, 3 years ago. Um, so I started off with just two of my players, Zach and Matt. Matt's playing a high elven sorceress named Sarah. She's a princess who is trying to recover a signet ring for her father so she can take over the kingdom. And Zach is playing a half-orc barbarian called Grimal, who is trying to recover a shard of the Eye of Grumsh, or a relic containing such shard. Something like that. It's been a long time since that campaign. So, anyway. So Zach and Matt go off to find this shard. They end up meeting some other players along the way. I'm giving you a very condensed version of this because I want to get to a point. The other players ended up being Abigail. She was a sorceress. Marcus was a half-orc fighter. And Infonasia, who is a halfling tiefling. And it's interesting because it was when Infonasia was introduced is when the part I wanted to get to. They had recovered I don't know how many of these shards so far. The main goal is to recover these shards because the half-orcs want them, or the orcs want them. And they're going to do anything they can to get them, and they're creating a large orc army of talking thousands of orcs who happen to be at one point when they were getting shards, or an orcish army came through and devastated the town. They had just, they went into the mountain, they come out of the mountain, and the town is gone. And then they just followed the wake. So, but in this one little area, I'd left some notes, and they found some clues and done some research, and they were looking for information on a red wizard named Mosk, M-O-S-K. He had been around like almost 1,000 years ago. He had the information on this particular shard or the ring or something. He had gone through, they found this location of an abandoned Fey hideout in Uthanas, which is currently under Mahaldran control. So they had to sneak in here, sneak into the this hideout, which was also underneath a Mahaldran encampment. So that was fun. They had to sneak into the encampment and then find the secret entrance in the encampment to the Fey hideout, abandoned hideout. They finally make their way using a little bit of intimidation, trickery, and sneakiness, and make their way into this underground thing. This is where I introduced Mosk. Mosk was, in my notes, Mosk, M-O-S-K. And I needed something for them to fight there. So I decided as they're going in there and they find this ancient thing, undead, lich-like, taunt, but not undead type thing inside of him, sealed inside of a magic circle, unable to escape. So they had conversed with him. Through the conversation, I had decided this guy is Mosk. Make it easy. I can go ahead and get that plot point out of the way. So this guy is Mosk. They find out where the next little section is to go. I had attended this place to be a headquarters for them because they had already met up with some rebel forces, and so I had an NPC in the party that had been with them from the start decide to stay. He was a cleric. His name was Tarek. And because there was now enough people in the party, I didn't feel the need for me to have to tag along with somebody. They got enough people. They've got healing potions. They didn't need the cleric. So they go in there. Tarek decides to stay behind. Infonesia had while searching the room, she'd come across a ring that allowed her to communicate with Mosk, which she did a lot. Mosk was batshit crazy. He kept wanting to dance. Do you want to dance? And just, I mean, he would go from one extreme to the other, just anger, and then just in a snap of the fingers, just very elegant and thing, but just rotten, think like mummy, just rotted, zombie-esque disease, just gaunt. Very lich-like, but he's not a lich. So he was in there. They got the information, but they didn't kill him. They didn't let him go. They didn't bust the circle out. He was trying to. Of course, the room that he was sealed in also had fear. So every time they went in, they had to make a saving throw versus frightening, and one of them kept failing. They're heavy hitter. So anyway, Tarek stayed behind with the rebellion forces and used this as a headquarters. We skip a little bit farther after they run into the half-orc army, or I keep saying half-orc army, the orc army that was ravaging across the land, thousands and thousands of soldiers. They get into the big battle. All this. This is weeks of gameplay. Through the entire time, Infonesia is communicating through Mosk to Tarek. We had a player death in there, which she was replaced by a cleric. And that player death was not my fault. I just want to state that. Fireballs are not necessarily players' friends, especially when they're cast inside the party. So they've been communicating. Tarek and this. Well, after they had beat the main bad guy, defeated the armies that had shown up to devastate the land, and this one guy was trying to rise up in power to become the right hand of Grumsh. They defeated him. Grumsh offered the half-orc barbarian in the party to stand as his right hand. At that point, the half-orc barbarian, they had already been defeated and just bloodied and whatnot, and he turned down the Grumsh, so the half-orc barbarian, turned around, fuck you, Grumsh. Well, the other gods showed up and just started wiping out, well, I say other gods, a couple of the gods, they didn't show up, but they brought in reinforcements. Everybody that the party had helped out, my version of the United Wrestling Federation, which is the FCF, the Faerunian Combat Federation. I wanted Gladiator Pit, but different. So it's a wrestling organization where humanized monsters. The Displacer Beast guy with the tentacles, and he actually, yeah, it's just the Displacer Speed stats 101 combat. I needed something easy and fun. Anyway, so like all of these people had shown up, started fighting. They get to the bad guy, they knock him down, they defeat him. I'm like, all right, you've got all this done. Now, you've gone off and started doing on your own things, and we did a little bit of wrap up on what their characters were doing and how, Sarah was getting ready to get the crown, and Grimal had decided to go off on his own to hide in the woods like a hermit. And Infonasia wanted to start a merchant city town thing that she had run across. And I'm like, okay. So now 2 years have gone by, and you're off doing your own things, and blah, blah, blah. And then I looked at it and I said, in Infonasia, you get a message. It's coming through your ring. You haven't heard from Mosk in a while. Your communications haven't been going through. You haven't heard any responses. And all of a sudden you hear a response, and it's a voice you haven't heard in a long time. It sounds like Tyrek. And he says, Mosk has escaped, and he's after us. And that is where I ended the campaign. Mosk was brought up. Mosk went from being just this one guy that was in a room to being the main villain of my current campaign. And it all happened because of an email, or it might have been a text, or one of the players said, hey, what about this guy? Said something about Mosk, but they spelled it M-O-S-Q-U-E. At that point, I said, that created so much more, just the spelling of that word, the way that he had spelled it, created in my mind a whole different background and story for this guy, that I couldn't just let him be a throwaway villain. Just a throwaway. No. But he created something more. So I guess this whole story is, the whole point of this story is DMs. It can't be said enough. Let your players write your story. Just the way they perceive a name can create so much. Listen to them. Let them write your story. I do a very sandbox game. I have literally a sheet of names most of the time. And I stole this real quick from, I heard it from Taliesin Jaffe on GM Tips with Satine Phoenix. He uses the 7 dwarves and then a list of names, and he instantly has a personality for a person. That's really all you need. And that's all I'm going to do for right now. All I can say is, don't forget the game. Bye.